Today we're discussing how to add conflict to your story. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Christian. I think I did too fast. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey toward publication. My name is Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
And I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy.
And we are clearly two, I almost said two sheets in the wind. Maybe that we are two hosts short of our podcast. Rhonda Hagerman is still out on some medical leave, which, by the way, I'll share that for my what's up, I think. And Jamie Hirschberger is taking a couple of J.R. Nichols is taking a couple of weeks off. So it's just, you guys just get us. You get half of the half the amount of show, twice as much of the shenanigans, most likely, because that's generally what happens when there's just two of
There's
us,
nobody
right?
to ground us.
There isn't. But honestly, if we're relying on Jamie and Rhonda to ground us, it's a pretty shaky foundation, guys. It is. All right, Catherine is in our chat. Good morning, Catherine. Liz is here as well. Good morning, Liz. Liz was able to join us a little bit yesterday in our sprints. We did a room in our group, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not a member of our group, you need to come and join our group. There is a link in the show notes. Gigi's here as well. Hello, Gigi. And then, one of our new friends, she's on here as Knitting Nerd, but Suzanne, hello, Suzanne. She joined us yesterday in our live writing sprints that we did down in a cafe in a church down in Ortonville, Michigan. We have one more of those left if you are local and you would like to join us next Thursday. And then we will discuss, I guess, what we do after that if we're going to continue it. Piper is here as well. Good morning, Piper, and Shell as well. We got an active chat already. Thank you guys for being here, because since it's just the two of us, we're going to need some help.
Somebody's going to need some help. That's all I know.
Somebody. All right. Well, this is the part of our show where we like to share what's going on in our personal lives. We call it our What's Up. So, Tina, why don't you go first? What's up with you?
Well, if anybody didn't notice, I wasn't here last week.
I didn't notice.
For the podcast.
Just kidding.
Because my son, he's 31. He was in the hospital. His lung collapsed just kind of spontaneously.
So crazy.
Yeah, he woke up last Friday morning. Not last Friday, the Friday before that. And he thought he'd pulled a muscle in his chest. So he just kind of laid in bed for 4 days. And then he got up to go to work on that Monday, and he worked second shift. So it was like after 3 in the afternoon. And he couldn't breathe. He was trying to talk to his boss, and he couldn't breathe. And the machine he works on, it's called an extruder, and it lets off these plastic fumes, and people try to get out of working on that machine by saying they can't breathe. So he felt like when he told his boss he couldn't breathe, that his boss thought he was joking or so he went, and his lung had collapsed, and they gave him morphine, and then they stuck a tube in his chest. Like, they didn't even put him out. The poor kid.
Oh my word.
And then they transferred him to the hospital down here because they have like 53 beds in the town where he lives.
It's a little town.
Yeah.
It's up in our thumb. If you know anything about Michigan, we have like the thumb area, and he's up in the thumb.
Yeah. So anyway, he was in there until that next Friday. They took the tube out on Thursday, and his lung deflated a little bit, so he had to stay an extra day. But he's home and back to work, and my husband and I are going up there this weekend to spend the weekend.
Oh, good.
So, and the write-ins have been going really good. I was able to catch a little bit of one in the week that my son was in the hospital. And then the first one in yesterday, got a lot done. So it's been great.
Yeah, they've been really great. I've been doing a lot of, so if you've watched this, were you done? I'm sorry, Tina.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, sorry. If you've watched our episodes for any length of time, you're gonna know that like I've been sprinting on the show here in a certain world that I haven't really started that book, but all those sprints have been adding up, and I'm piecing them together for this book that I've now started. And so a lot of my writing was kind of like going back in and filling in places or figuring things out. But still, I was getting 400 or 500 words a sprint, which I'm happy with that. Tina was getting about the same. But Jason and Suzanne were killing it. They're each getting like close to 1,000 or more than 1,000 every sprint, and they both of them got around 4,000 words for the day. Amazing! Like if I could do 4,000 words a day, I'd be putting books out all the time.
I forget now, but the amount of words that Jason said he writes in a week just
Insane.
blew my mind. It was like in the tens of thousands. I don't. It was like 30,000 or 40,000. I was just like, wow.
And he works 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and does that. So like I'm feeling
I
a
need
little
to
bit like
sit
I'm
next,
lacking.
look a little closer to Jason next time, so some of that'll rub off.
Liz says, "How many chatters make up for one missing host?"
And I like Piper's
Mm,
reply to her.
yeah, LOL, Liz, but nobody can make up for Jamie. Aw, that's true. So hopefully, like, we can do justice for this. So, all
Yeah.
right. So my what's up is I chatted with Rhonda this morning.
Yay!
Yay! So, Rhonda is actually on top of everything else that Rhonda is going through. She bought a house. Um, on a small pond lake area that is near where she grew up and next door to her brother. Like it's kind of like a family kind of a situation, and has had nothing but like headache with this poor house and like remodeling, but working on remodeling it, doing an addition, trying to like fight with the township over like
Coding stuff.
coding stuff, and like they had it listed as a commercial
Business.
property and
Yeah.
it's not, but they didn't want to change the listing because you pay more taxes that way. Like it was just this whole thing, right? All these months, and we're talking like years, right? That this has been going
Yeah,
on.
it's been a couple years.
Yeah. Well, the reason she was going to try to join us today because this topic is something that like she hates. Like she doesn't like conflict. She doesn't want to put it in her stories. So she was going to be on here just to say, like I wanted her on here just to say, "No, I don't want to do that." For the comedic relief. But she's moving next week. She actually finally gets to move in. So this is Rhonda's what's
Nice.
up, I guess I will say for her that like so we praying for Rhonda. She had some more tests on this last week and found out some news. Not great news, but it's like it's can be dealt with kind of a situation. So it could have been worse. So just be continuing to pray for Rhonda as because she misses us all and we just love her so much. So Piper says, "Is this the gas station?" Yes. So like years and decades and years ago, it was a gas station, but it's been a house. Like, and we're talking gas station back when like people would like live upstairs and then downstairs they would have like a, business. Like we're talking like the 50s, maybe.
When people pumped your gas for you and washed your
Yes.
windows, which I have to say, if you ever go to Bad Axe, Michigan, go to the Marathon Station because the nicest little old man will come out there, pump your gas, and wash all your windows.
Oh, I love that. Lapeer used to have, which is not far from here, used to have a gas station that still did that. I don't know if they still have people that pump your gas, but I would go there just because like it just was nostalgic. I'm like, yeah, I don't care if I pay a few cents more if you're gonna do my windows and everything. So
Yeah, I was getting out of my car and there's this guy standing there. And I'm like, hello? He goes,
that's
I'm here to pump your gas. I was like,
that,
oh,
that was my first experience at the Lapeer one. It scared me. I'm like, why is this guy there? And he knocked at my window, and I was like, like it'd been so long that I didn't even know what it was like to have someone like pump my gas.
I know.
Luckily, it was the middle of the day. It wasn't anything creepy, and it was
Right.
like actually a young kid. So like I'm like, okay, like roll my window down, and he's like, "How much you want?" I'm like, "You're gonna pump it for?" I'm thinking it was just some kid thought he was gonna help me. He's like, "Yeah, that's what we do here." I'm like, "Oh, you work here? Oh, okay." It was just
Yeah, he
so
was
weird.
just so nice. And he was like, have a nice day, young lady. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm
young
a young
lady, I'm
lady. Yeah.
coming back every week.
If I could afford the gas to get to that gas station.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So we have plenty of time to talk because there's just the two of us, right?
Yeah, right.
So we'll take up extra time. So I think I've shared a little bit that my church that I attend planted another church basically just 15 minutes down the road, same road, though the name changes. And we do Saturday night church. We kind of like I've kind of switched everything up on this church plant, which I love. I never who knew that Saturday night church would be like my jam, but I love it. Um, but the funny thing is because it's kind of a younger congregation because we're doing things different and it's Saturday night and so like I'm like the old lady, which I don't like. I joke that I don't like it, but I don't mind because like all of these kids, I'm gonna call them kids if I'm gonna be considered they literally call me the church mom. If I'm gonna be the church mom, I'm gonna call the 30-year-olds kids. I don't care. But they all were like my Sunday school kids. Like a ton of these kids, like I watched grow up or was in my Sunday school class. But yeah, so whenever someone makes me feel young, I usually gravitate towards them. Well, hi, you want to be my new best friend? So, oh golly. Let's see. Catherine Carroll says, there's an old gas station in Highland that is now a home. Every time I drive by, I'm so jealous. So this one doesn't even look like a gas station. That's even the other thing about it is that you could tell it was just a house. And I think at one point there was an antique store in there, but still someone was living there. But it's clearly a house. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I'm saying, like it was probably like the 40s, 50s that it was a gas station, maybe even earlier. That it was a house, and they're like, "Oh, we need to start selling gas somewhere in town." And this family, put in gas pumps or whatever. So, um, but yeah, it'd be kind of cool to have like a classic looking gas station and live in it. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Liz says, I'm old enough to remember when my parents had to choose between self-serve or having someone pump for them. Me too. I remember those days too. And my parents would argue. My mom's like, I don't want to get out of the car. My dad's like, I'm not paying another penny. Like I remember those days. Suzanne says, Jen, thank you for the tour of your church yesterday. I could feel the presence of the Holy Spirit there. Thank you. I believe that too. I feel very much like we're doing what God has called that building to. There's a whole nother story there about how like the church had kind of closed down, but like our church planted it. But the cool thing is so many people that used to attend that church now attend my church. And so they helped fund this church that they all like grew up in, but they're happy where they are because my church is bigger and has like a great like 55 plus ministry. Like there's just this whole bigger story. Like, other people on the outside say, oh, well, that church planted this church. There's more to the story than that. So like God
Right.
has just been
Yeah,
very
it's a
faithful
cool
and very good in
story.
the whole thing. So I appreciate that. People are praying and hugging for Rhonda. I appreciate you guys with all of that. I know I've not gotten everybody's chat, but there's a lot of
But
chat
I
going
think
on,
we
which
need
we
to talk
appreciate.
about the thing in the backyard that Rhonda found when she bought this house. Piper mentioned it.
Oh yeah.
But it
Oh yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
the
yeah.
outhouse. It was a what was it called?
But we teased her about it being an outhouse. It was where you would
Oh,
go dump your gray water, right? It was something like
yeah,
that?
I forget what the name of it was, but it was just like a thing in the ground, and it was full of old
A cistern.
cistern. That's right.
Because so that's how old this place is, right? Is because, like, you didn't have, like, probably garbage pickup, and so if you, like, broke a pot, what do you do with it? Well, you go out and you, like, bury it or you throw it in the cistern, like, it was just and
Yeah,
so over the years, these things are now it's like pieces of, like, treasure to Rhonda,
like
but we were
having an archaeological dig in your
yes.
backyard.
And
Yeah,
that's all if
good.
you guys know Rhonda, man, that is she
Yeah,
lives for that. So this
she's
place is like
number
her
one
dream
contact.
house. Yeah. And she's been through so much over the past since we started the podcast and now she's been through so much that I'm so happy for her that like this is finally coming to fruition and she's gonna finally get to move into there.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we did tease it. We called it the outhouse for sure. We kept
Oh, is
teasing her
that
that
what
she
it
was
was?
digging through the
I don't.
outhouse.
I'm a lot older than you. I didn't remember.
I didn't remember it either until she said that. Until she said the outhouse, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, we were teasing her about that." Her digging through the old outhouse. Oh, good times, good times.
Yeah,
All right, well, I suppose we should actually talk about the topic today,
yeah,
Tina. What
that
do you
might be
think?
good.
Maybe. I don't know. Should we
I don't
fight
know.
about it for a
I'm
minute?
conflicted.
Should we fight about it for a minute?
Yeah,
Raise
maybe
some
we're.
conflict in the
I'm
episode?
conflicted about whether we should have fight about it.
Conflicted. Good one. I missed it at first. Good one. All right. So today's topic is adding conflict to your story. And so you might think, like, some of you might be like, well, yeah, of course you have to do that. But I'm telling you, like, what was it last week that I said? You weren't here, but I said, if you read a boring book, it's probably because this is missing. And I'm trying to think of what it was. What did we talk about last week? I'm so tired.
I don't even know.
Don't even remember. Someone in the chat remind me. But it was one of the other things I think that when you read a book and it just doesn't click with you or it just feels kind of like empty is probably because there's not enough conflict. So why, so let's talk about that. So Tina, why do you think conflict is important for your book?
Well, if there's no conflict, there's no tension, then you're doesn't give your reader a reason to turn the page. Like if I
Right.
wanted to read like a boring old life like I'm living, I mean, why would I? First
Right.
of all, like we can get that in real life. What we want is we want that tension and that drama so that we can get pulled into it. And there's actually some brain science behind this.
Mm.
um because the reason that story is so important to us started like with our forefathers way way long ago when were living in a hostile environment and they had to survive. And so,
Mhm.
caveman number one would go out and fight the saber-tooth tiger and win, and he'd go back and tell the story of how he beat the saber-tooth tiger, and our brains wanted to like experience that conflict with him so that we
Mhm.
could learn how to fight the saber-tooth tiger.
Oh, that's interesting. You always bring out the brain science. I love it. So
Yes, I'm all about the brain
for me, it
science.
helps to add layers too. Like for me, I'm all about plotting. You guys know that, and about character arcs and their spiritual arc. I talk about that in other episodes too. And so like if you don't have any conflict, it's really hard for there to be an arc where your character starts in one position and by the end they have improved or changed, or their spiritual life is in one position and then by the end they've improved or it's changed. So without conflict, I don't know how you would do character arc. So it adds that layers to your story that make
Right.
it worth reading, right? Because yes, you could you could write a story that doesn't have it, but like who cares, right?
Yeah.
Who cares to read it? So
Somebody said to me one time that they don't read fiction because they don't like drama. They
yeah.
said it's just so full of drama. I
Yeah,
was
it
like,
is.
yeah,
That's
that's
the
kind of
point.
the point. So I guess it's a good reason not to read fiction then.
I guess so. This is where we need Rhonda in here today because Rhonda does
Ew.
not like conflict in real life for sure, but she does not like it. Like it's hard for her to put it in her story. She doesn't like to hurt her characters. I love hurting my
Remember
characters.
when we
Like
told
if
her
you've
she
ever read
needed
my
to kill
books,
her
you know.
one of her characters?
Huh?
Remember when we told her she needed to kill one of her characters?
Yes. You would have thought it was a real person. Like she
Yeah,
was like upset. We're like,
like
no, no, no. This
we
person
wanted
needs
her
to
to
die.
sacrifice her firstborn or something.
Yes, and it would have made for a better story. She kinda knew that it would, but to her, like, for me, my characters are real people too. Like, they feel real to me, but that's why real things have to happen to them. To
Right.
her, her characters are real to her, so she feels like she's hurting a real person. So,
Mhm.
Liz says, "You need that pressure to form those diamonds." Yes, love that
Exactly.
saying. Yep. I'm gonna
Yeah.
send that one to Rhonda in a text message later.
And in my my current book that I'm writing, I started with I knew what my theme was going to be, which was having faith, unshakable faith. And
Mhm.
so then I was like, okay, what can I do to my
To
characters
shake it up.
to force them to have unshakable faith?
Right.
So like that is like the whole thing that causes the change that makes turns the diamond in the rough into the diamond.
Right. My first book, the kind of like the overall one of the overall themes was being content where God has you. And so what can I do to my character to make her discontent? Right? What can I like or make her feel like she's not where she wants to be or should be or, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, same thing. So all right, so let's talk about kinds of conflict because it's there's not just like conflict. Like some people are like might even be new to writing and not really understand what we're even talking about. So let's talk about kinds of conflict that we can put in our writing. So the first one we talked about in our planning session was external conflict.
Yeah.
So
And
what does
that's
that
the
mean?
most obvious because that's the stuff that you see, the earthquake, the
Mhm.
two characters fighting, that you lost your job, like this stuff that's happening around your main character that they have to deal with. And
Literally outside of their physical body, anything that's
yeah,
happening outside. So even if it's like you said, like a conflict with a coworker, like, that's happening outside of their body. It might interact with their internal, but, like right. So, like, either whether
yeah.
it's a fist fight or an argument, yeah, that's all external, right?
Or the zombies have come,
Yeah. Right. No zombies in my stories, but yeah. So, do you have an example from any of your writing that you can think of?
Oh
I did.
yeah, well, the way that I'm forcing all my characters to have unshakable faith is a
Mm-hmm.
major earthquake is just gonna tear Alaska apart.
Mm,
So the ground is gonna shake, and their faith is gonna shake,
mm-hmm.
and well, you'll just have to read the book to find out what
There
happened.
you go. So I have lots of examples of external conflict, but some of my favorite external conflict to write, and I'm on a Rhonda kick today. Some of Rhonda's favorite to read, which is funny because she doesn't like conflict in her own stories, but she loves my character, like loves to hate them. The characters that you love to hate are like my favorite form of conflict to write. Like in the first book, it was Florence. She hates Florence, but she loves hating Florence. In a book that's going to come out this summer is her name is Beatrice. Oh, you hear Rhonda talk about Beatrice, and she's got
Mhm.
lots of words about Beatrice. But I love characters that just cause conflict with your main character, like keep things stirred up and like the kinds you love to hate. So that's some of my favorite conflict to write. External conflict is that kind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and like if you're reading a murder mystery, then there's the murderer and the
mhm.
murder, and if you're reading a thriller, there's like the monster under the bed or whatever. And
Mhm. Okay, so those are obvious. And in a mystery too, so you got the murder, yeah, but then as you're trying to solve it, all those roadblocks that stop you from solving it, those are all conflict too.
yeah,
Because if you didn't have those roadblocks, it would just get solved and it's like
yeah,
done. We were watching an episode of Psych the other night. We just started watching Psych for those of you that it's an older show, but my girls are like old enough now to understand kind of everything that's happening in the story, right? And it got solved like pretty fast and the guy was like, was that too easy? Like, so, like, it bothered him that it was so easy, and it ended up that there was more to the story than that. But, like, there wasn't enough conflict, so it just got solved, and then he was, like, not comfortable with that, and, like, his dad was mad at him, like, "You just want there to be drama." Like, yeah, that's the whole point of the show,
yeah.
so
Don't if you're a reader and you don't want to know this secret, plug your ears. But like if they solve it too quickly, I always go, oh, they got the wrong guy.
yeah, always. Otherwise, what are they gonna do the other
Like
100
there's 40
pages?
minutes left in the show.
Yeah. If there's still 150 pages left in the book, you know
Yeah,
that's not actually the guy or there's something more,
yeah,
right? Um, yeah, and so, like, relationship conflict, like I was talking about, it's that juicy stuff that brings you in and makes you feel like you're there. Like, we all know a Florence in our life, or we all know a Beatrice, and we just, like, oh, we read
no,
the book and we're
can we?
like,
We're not
"Yeah."
allowed to say their name. Is that
Yeah, no.
okay?
These are made up people I'm saying. So, like,
Oh,
don't, like, come
all
at
right.
me. Don't yeah, like, "My name's Beatrice, and I can't stand that you hate me." Like, no. It's I always try to use names too that, like, there aren't a lot of people out there that they're not common names now. But you never know. I mean, like, old-fashioned names are in again, so, um, okay, great. So, that's external conflict. Now what about internal conflict?
Those are my favorites.
Hmm.
I love the internal conflicts, like the emotional angst that, get some good jealousy or unforgiveness or petulance or
Mhm.
pride or some kind of flaw, spiritually and sometimes ethically, that this character needs to overcome by the end of the story.
Mhm.
Like, you are being a brat. Like, I was writing book 2 the whole time I was writing it. I was like, nobody's gonna like her. She's being such a brat.
Mhm.
Like, I wasn't sure I liked her because she was being, but that was her arc. Like, she had to start
Mhm.
out that way
Right.
so that she could learn to forgive and become a different person by the end of the book.
And there's an art to that too, because as you're talking, I remember one of our first, not first, but we had a critique group and we met at a Tim Hortons over near where you live. And I was like all excited to hear what you guys had to say about what I'd written. And Rhonda's like, I hate your main character. And I was like, what? And she started listing out all these things, and I was trying to set up so that she would have this character arc and that we would love her by the end, but I had made her too bad. I had made her
Yeah.
too annoying, and so that was good for me to hear. So there is an art to it, Like, so don't go overboard with it. But yeah, to
Which is
hear
why you need
Rhonda, who loves everything I write, for her to say I hate your main character, I was like, because I love this main character. You're like, I
yeah.
couldn't believe it. So
And this is why we need like critique group or
mm,
alpha readers or something like that, because sometimes we're too close and you can't see the forest through the trees. And we think that we've done one thing, and then our readers are like, no, that's not what we experienced.
yeah, yeah. All right, so we talked. So this is internal conflict. In external conflict, we talked about conflict between characters on the outside of our bodies. That's the external. But there can be conflict between characters internally as well, right? S-
Yeah,
So that's the juicy stuff. That's where I meant to say that. That's where the juicy stuff is all the
right.
internal stuff. You like,
And like for romance, that's obvious. Like they like
mhm.
each other, but they don't want to admit it.
Like I wrote something, I think it was a sprint recently in the Marnie world where correct me if I'm wrong, where she was working and he like leaned over her shoulder and was talking to her very close. And I was able to like not only talk about like what she was thinking, but like what happened to her physical body from that. But that was all like internal,
Mhm.
like her heart, like, the heart racing or in her mind, like you can use words like like if you don't want the listener, the readers to enjoy this interaction between your characters, you could, the sloppy s's of his as he said the words um
Mhm.
felt like they dripped down my ear. Ew, that's gross. But
Yeah,
like his warm breath tickled my ear. It's a totally different experience, right? So
yeah.
that's how you like one of the ways you can do the relationship stuff, like,
Hmm.
and it can be negative stuff and it can be positive. I love doing that. Of
Yeah.
course I do. I write romance. Of course I love that.
Right, and like in fantasy, like classic example would be the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where like the ring has this allure,
Yes.
and they want to put it on, and but it makes them change when they put it on, but so they're trying not to. Like that's an internal conflict. In like a gritty crime drama, you always have a detective. He's probably an alcoholic. His family
Mhm.
probably left because he's a workaholic.
Mhm.
And so there's like all this internal conflict at the same time that he's trying to solve this murder or mystery or whatever it is. So
Right. So that's the internal between characters, but you can also just have internal within the own themselves. Suzanne says one of my characters is jealous of the others who knit and crochet. So that's an internal that could be really juicy and really show a lot about your character's personality and their flaws. Because really, is it anyone else's fault that they know how to knit and crochet? It's not. So it's not really a conflict between your character and another character. It's a conflict within themselves. So that's a
right.
great example of straight up internal conflict.
In my books, it's usually spiritual.
Mhm.
It's usually like in this one, I'm showing my main character Angelica in the beginning, feeling like she needs to rely on herself, so she's trying to learn to fight, and she's trying to like up her skills,
Mhm.
so she can be more self-sufficient, and so there's like that, and so she's mad when um when she doesn't do well, like when she's fighting or something. But
Mhm.
and then it starts to progress. She starts to see that she's really helpless anyway.
Mhm.
Like how is learning to fight going to help you in an earthquake and
Right.
a volcano erupting? Like,
Right.
so all of this effort that she put into, learning to fight, was now she's like her internals like struggling. Well, I did all this. Why is this happening? I was doing all these things that I was supposed to be doing. And then
Mhm.
she'll have to work through that and come to a place of surrender and say,
Mhm.
yeah, it's you that's in control, and I just need to sit back and let you be
Mhm.
in control. Like that. I love those kind of internal conflicts.
Catherine says, the conflict I'm struggling with in my work in progress is all internal and it's driving me crazy. I would like to know why it's driving you crazy. So maybe we can like address this or talk about this, Catherine. So give us a little bit more information. Like, is it driving you crazy because it's hard to write? Is it driving you crazy because you don't like internal conflict? I don't just give us a little bit more information. I would love to to know more about that. So the conflict with God situation, I think, is a really good, especially as Christian writers, is a really good place to add conflict for your character to show growth within your character. Because what you were talking about, even though it's about specifically about your character, I can see that kind of be like putting in any work in progress, because even in our own lives, we think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We think we're following, God's plan, we think, right? And then things don't go like we thought they would. And now all of a sudden we now have a crisis with God, right? Why is this happening to me, Lord? Why did you allow this to happen? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so this is a great juicy place to be able to really give some meat to the bones of your character and make them feel real, because guess what? We all go through that. Every single one of us, if
Exactly.
not weekly, at least once in our life, have had a situation like that where we question God. Like, why are we going? I mean, read Lamentations. Poor
Mhm.
Jeremiah was like, Lord, why is this happening? Because poor Jeremiah had to listen to the Lord and take all of what God said and go to the people and tell them, okay, God said he's going to destroy you. And then he had to take all of that like stress from them and the anger from them. And then he had to live through it, like the invasions and all the things that the God said was going to happen to them. He had to live through it. And then he had to watch like his world be like tore apart, and then he had to like afterwards just like live in that new reality. Now imagine, like, he did exactly what God told him to do, right? So we've all been through it. So if like you're going through that right now, take some time and study and read Lamentations, because it'll make you feel better, because it is okay to say, God, why? Where I
Right.
think some people think you can't question God. No, he expects you to, like, open up the communication with him,
Right. And
right?
like, God, why would you bring me all this way and then slam the door in my face?
Yeah.
Because we don't understand why he brought us there or something. It's like, so it's, yeah, I love that part. Like
Hmm.
that is really like the key to a lot of the themes in my books is overcoming these conflicts with God and with our faith.
Hmm. Yeah. So Catherine says, trying to show the struggle is real and legitimate instead of that annoying stuff we see in books that make the characters annoying. Yes. Okay. So we have time. We're running a little bit. No, we're fine. Let's stop here and talk a little bit. Now, just so you guys know, so if we give you bad advice, then, blame Tina. So anyway, I blame Tina for everything.
That's right.
Um,
I can take
so
it.
this is a true statement. She's saying a lot of characters in books are annoying because the struggles are not done properly. For example, I was reading a series by another, and I'm not gonna name her, because she drew me in. Her first few books were great, and then I don't know if it was rapid releasing, and it got worse. But one of her characters was a rich socialite on the East Coast, and then she ran away to like the West, like Montana. And but all of a sudden she knew how to cook really well, better than the girl that was raised there. And she knew, like, she was really good at like cleaning and doing, and like she did all this, like he got injured or something, and so she had to go out into the like part of their land, like way out, and she had to take care of the animals. Like, where did she learn all this, right? So to me, it
Yeah.
was like, so she was struggling with this. No, the struggle would have been more real if it had been like she didn't do it right.
Yeah.
And like, that would have been more right, like, correct. So I feel you. I understand that. So how are some ways that we can make our struggle real? I think being honest. I think not making our character, like, sometimes we fall so in love with our characters, or like the ideals that we think our characters stand for, that we make them almost superhuman. And I think that we need to, if we can step away and make our characters, like, honestly look at them and say, no, that's not really great. So Will, the character of Will, that was the other problem I had with that book 3. I loved Will so much that I didn't give him any flaws. There's no human man on this earth that is perfect and doesn't have any flaws. But guess what? I
There
married
used to
one.
be on the earth, now he's in heaven.
There you go. But I married an imperfect man and I love him. So why couldn't I write a character that was imperfect that readers would still love?
Right.
So I had to go back and I had to give him some flaws. Like, okay, so if he is this kind of a personality, meaning like he wants to protect everyone. He, being a police officer fits him. Like, what are some of his flaws? Well, he's overprotective. He's controlling because he knows best. Like I had to give him those kind of personality traits
Which
so
comes
that
out of the overprotection, like the
yes.
controlling. Yeah.
So that's what I guess just talking this through, Catherine, if I were there reading your book, if I was in your critique group, my advice would be figure out in essence who your character is. Like for me, Will was a protector. He was a police officer. God created him to protect other people. So if that is the personality that he is, what would his flaw be? What would be the extreme of that? So figure out what in essence your character is, and then figure out what the extreme would be for them. So like Angelica, let's just take her, even though like you've already written the books, right? But let me just say, so Angelica wants freedom, right? So she is tired of being tied down by these like rules of the church, and she wants freedom. So what would the extreme be? Running away all the time, being wanting so much freedom that she doesn't have responsibility. She's not a responsible individual. And I think you did this well. Like I feel like that you took it to the extreme, and then she had to learn. God put on her shoulders a responsibility that she had to follow through on. So that's just some examples. I hope that's helpful. If it's not, and you want to talk specifically about your character, reach out. I would love to
Yeah.
chat with you. We can message me, or you can even go into the group and start a thread and we can talk about it. But that would be my advice, knowing like basically zero about your characters. So
Yeah.
I talked a long time. Did you have anything to add, or did I take it all?
Um. Well, about that, no. I would need to sit down and think about it. Like
Mhm.
I'm a thinker, so
Right.
I need time to think before I can answer stuff sometimes.
All right. So we talked about internal and external conflict. So now let's talk about, now that you know what kind of conflict you should be adding. Oh, wait. First of all, Catherine says, thanks, Jen. The word extreme resonates. I do need to let them both show flaws, even this late in the book. Yes, exactly. Because none of us are perfect. And yep.
Except
Okay.
me.
Yeah, except for Tina. Tina's perfect. That's why I can blame her for
I'm
everything, because
perfectly imperfect.
yes. All right. So now that you know about the conflict, how do you add it to your story? So, Tina, what's one way we can add it to our story?
Dialogue. And
Mm.
if you want to see an example of it, you can listen to my sprint that I wrote right before the
Awesome.
podcast when I read it, because there's a conflict going on with my character,
Mhm.
but I show it in the dialogue instead of internal thoughts. So
Love
that's
that.
one way. And there might be, like, I don't remember now. Maybe I have a couple of internal thoughts, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of dialogue that exposes her conflict.
Yeah. I love that. I was actually going to say for the dialogue that if you want to work on this, try writing a scene with only dialogue and nothing else. You can maybe use he said, she said, just to kind of keep yourself straight. But when we say dialogue, we don't mean no, she said, frowning and storming off, because you're using her actions, which we will talk about that later. But you can use dialogue to like give that expression. Um, Instead of her just saying no and storming off, she could say, well, I guess I'll have to take advice from the one person that never takes my advice. Right there, those words right there are fighting words, right? You
Yeah.
can find ways of using the dialogue to show the conflict, or to expose something that you didn't even that the other characters or your reader didn't know about, that was something someone was angry at. Like, well, mom always loved you best. And your character's like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? So dialogue is one of the first things we would say. And then
Yeah.
internal thoughts. So now you can go like, so start with dialogue, try that out, do some exercises with that. Then you can move on to internal thoughts, but be careful. Don't be info dumpy, which if you want to see info dumpy, listen to my, my sprint in a few minutes here. All right. We'll
And
talk about that later.
we have talking with God on the outline, and I just want to say, if your character is praying, we do not need to hear word for word the entire prayer.
Yes. Yes.
We just need the highlights that you're trying to convey. And then
Yes.
you can do a dot dot dot
Right.
so that everyone knows that they continue to pray. But what the pick one. Like, you can't have 6 points you're trying to make in one prayer.
Right.
Like, pick one, highlight it, and just have 1 or 2 lines of prayer, and then move on.
Reviewers have compared me to Karen Kingsbury, which is blows my mind. Huge, huge compliment. But I think that the way that I write that is comparable to her is the way that I do the internal dialogue between God and my characters. And it's not like a Jen, you shall not. It's not like that. It's like they'll be like inside their head, mad about something or thinking about something, and then all of a sudden, like a voice, small, quiet voice, and it's usually what I write is I take scripture. It's the Lord reminding them of scriptures that they've memorized, and it completely changes their thoughts, and that like it's a whoa moment. So that's how I deal with talking with God, with the internal conflict within my but inner voice is good too. So like internal with God, of course, obviously, but you can also have inner voice moments like my character Marnie going to herself, come on Marnie, keep it together. Like that's a great way to do internal conflict within their, or them thinking about somebody and then the anger that they have, like, so
Yeah.
okay, so that's
And
kind of inside stuff. All right, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say the next point
Yep.
is the physical actions, like the obvious, the fights, struggling against the elements,
Dealing with the
whatever it is.
earthquake. Yeah.
Yeah, just,
Mhm.
whatever
Yep.
that is. Like, I actually have a fight scene in my current work in progress, um, where I have them like fighting with staffs. They have like those sticks, and they're like, and so I have to like, she moved her foot here, and he did
Mm.
this, and
Mhm.
I had to learn how to do that, and it was so much fun. I added it to my story. So,
That's awesome.
so there's like literally that's a conflict
The
physically.
opening the opening scene of my book too is all conflict. It is literally a war scene in World War II, but I spend so much time inside the character's head as he is like disengaged from what's happening. I do discuss what is happening around them to a certain, because it's romance, so you can only go so far, right? So
Hmm.
I tried to like make it realistic, but also make it about what he's experiencing in that and setting up like this guy's frame of mind at the beginning of the book. And so you can also mix the internal and external, is what I'm trying to say. So
Right.
and finally, this is the one that like we're gonna end with, and it's subtext. And so Tina was like, I have questions, but I'll save them for the podcast. So, what is subtext? Subtext is when you put something in your book that is not blatant, but the reader, when they read it, they know. So, for example, your character says, "How does my hair look?" And the other character says, "It's unbelievable." Okay, what does that mean? You don't have to tell them what it means. The subtext is where the reader puts in their own beliefs and thoughts about what the characters are saying or what they're doing. So and you don't have to answer it right away. Then you can reveal over the next pages, chapters, whatever, how that character really feels about that person's hair. Right. So subtext is a great way to put conflict because it brings your character, your reader kind of to the edge of it going, but wait a minute, I don't have all the information. Well, how are they going to get the rest of the information? By turning the page and continuing to read. So I love adding subtext into my books too.
Yeah.
Does that
Now that
clarify it?
answered my question, because I wasn't sure what you meant when you said subtext,
Okay,
because I
good.
just called it something different, probably.
Probably, yep. So subtext is allowing your reader to like put their own thoughts and opinions into what's going on or what was just said. That's ultimately what that means. So
Okay.
all right. Shell says Jamie sprints are often great with internal thoughts that show and don't tell. I
Yeah,
agree.
definitely.
Yes, very much so. She's very good at that. Today was not very good at anything. So that's a great transition into our next part of our show, which is the feeding of the backs. This is where we share our live sprints. We 15 minutes before, well, about that, before the show starts, we take 15 minutes and we sprint on the same exact prompt, and then we don't edit. We don't read them again. We don't share with each other until we do it live here on the show, which we were talking with Suzanne yesterday at the writing sprints. And we're like, at the beginning, it was like terrifying. Even though we had no listeners, it was terrifying to just do that because, like, we were used to, like, editing and polishing and making it the best it could be before we presented it to anyone else. But now we've kinda gotten a groove for it. Everyone knows it's not edited, so it's kind of fun to share. So,
And I feel like it's helpful too because then people out there can see that everything's not perfect when you
right.
first write it. It has to be edited and polished and revised. And like today, I my two characters' names are too similar, and so
Yeah.
that would be something that I would have to go back and change in editing and revision.
And for me in mine, there are places I was trying to get to through a bunch of information so that it was like a little bit more of a story as opposed to spending the whole time writing just like these internal thoughts of my character about this other person. So I not only do I need to keep adding to this because like this isn't a part of my book that I haven't written yet, but I have to go back in and fix and make better what I've written. So why don't I go first? Since
Okay.
yours I know is better. Mine, and I know what we say that, but like this is a part of my book where because it just is where I was ready to write next. So the words just kind of like I only used one of them, let's be honest. But like I was ready to write this and it just is what flowed out of me. But it's there's not an ending, it's not a complete story. There's no any aha moments. It's just giving us some more information if and a feel for another character, I guess. I don't know. I
Okay.
don't even know if I accomplished that because I have to go back and fix it. So here we go.
Are you
So
going to
we're
tell us the words?
yes, I will. Thank you, Tina. So it was 5 words today. Duke, curl, print, exception, and ideal. And I only got the first word in. Okay. And we're back at Widows of the West, book 1 in that world. Cade hadn't slept well the night before, so at the first sound of the red-winged blackbird's morning twill, he headed out toward his homestead. He wanted to arrive before his men headed out for the day. As he neared his home, the familiar sound of his hound Duke's bark greeted him before his place came into sight. As he cleared the ridge and saw his land lay before him, a sense of pride engulfed him. This was home, the ranch he had built with the Lord's guidance, and the sight of it made him ache to be there. He tapped Colonel's belly and urged him to go a little faster. As expected, Duke was running around, excitedly jumping at the heels of Shane, Cade's foreman and closest friend. It was no surprise that Shane was already up and working. From the minute they met on the battlefield, Shane had shown himself to be a determined, hardworking man, and that determination had only increased when he made the decision to head west with Cade in search of a new life. Both men had returned home after the war to find that home wasn't home anymore. Cade had lost his fiancée, but Shane had found freedom. But that hard-won freedom wasn't acceptable by everyone. So they both decided the West would bring them a new hope. And for Cade, it had, to a certain extent. But Shane was still working to find his way. And Cade was glad for that. There isn't another man he would trust with his ranch more than he trusted Shane. Shane caught sight of Cade, and he put down his bucket, the bucket he'd been filling, and met him at the fence. Let me guess, the widow McGuire set you packing? Shane chuckled. Couldn't couldn't I c sorry, can't believe it took her this long. Kay dismounted and tied Colonel to the fence post. Actually, things are going much better than I expected. Then why are you here? Don't tell me you missed me. Cade laughed. You mean I missed old Duke? 3, 2, 1. So it went nowhere. It's going
Actually,
somewhere.
actually, and maybe it's my number for context, but that was like a really meaty piece of information to me.
Thank you. Did it
Like,
feel dumpy?
not to me, no. I
Okay.
love knowing the context of anything, and I
Mhm.
love, like, Civil War era,
Mhm.
antepartum, like, all that, and I don't know if you said, earlier in the book or not, like, that specifically this man was a slave, but it was obvious by,
Yes.
and,
'Cause no, I didn't. This is this is just like, again, subtext,
right.
right?
He was in the war, he gained his freedom, he wasn't accepted, so he went out west, like, that stuff was so juicy and meaty to me, and I would have to have stopped, though, and looked up this, red-winged blackbird and
Oh.
probably listened to
Oh, the
a
12.
MP3 of what it sounds like because, like, context, I need to know that.
Right.
Um But I really like those sections of books that give you the context.
Mhm.
And no, so some people might think that that's superfluous or whatever, but I love it.
Oh, awesome. I'm so glad that it worked and did that. So, a little bit of background. I don't know that Shane was a slave. His mother was.
Okay.
Shane's father would have been probably his mother's owner, is what I'm thinking. Like, so just so you guys know, um, Shane is my main character for the next book. So having him in here and showing his personality is super important to me so that you already love him by the next, or at least are familiar with him well by the next book. So I don't know that I'm actually going to say he found freedom, but again, it's a sprint, right?
Right.
Like I know kind of what I want to accomplish in here, and I just sprint and get it out, and you can always go back in and massage it and fix it and change things.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
I love the underdog and I'm already
Hmm.
rooting for him. I love
Yeah, yeah, love it. All right. So so thank you, Gigi. She says, Jennifer, aka as young lady, I love this scene with Cade and Shane. It drew me in, making me want more about to know more about the situation. Yeah, I just can't wait to develop their friendship within this book and their past together and I'm not sure if they knew each other before they went down there or went to war or they met each other at war, but um Shell says, great setup, Jen. And yes, great subtext too. Awesome. Thank you. Suzanne says, well done, Jen. A great picture of Shane to get us wanting to know more. Awesome. Thank you. And then Catherine says, woohoo, Shane. Can't wait to read this series. Oh, thank you. Once I get this first book done, I think the other books are almost going to write themselves because they're already outlined. This book was not like, because I just kept sprinting it. I didn't have an outline, but the other books I have like outlined already. So we shall see. I'm very excited about. It's so nice to be in a new world too. I love my Love and Lansing series. I love these ladies, but I'm just excited about being in a new world. So,
And I have to say I'm excited too because I love like old west kind of stuff.
mhm.
And everybody knows it's no secret that I'm not a huge fan of fantasy. I don't read it a lot.
You mean
But
romance? You're a huge
right,
fan of fantasy.
romance. Oh my gosh.
You love
Let
fantasy.
me drink some more coffee.
I know. You see me drinking. I am just so tired today for some reason.
But like your books are different
Aw.
than most romances, and I love like old west and post Civil War kind of that era. I love to read stuff like that. So
Oh, good.
I'm
I'm excited
excited.
for you to read this. I can't wait to have like a draft where I can, have you critique it. So,
Yeah.
so speaking of critique, I'm ready to critique yours, Tina. This is
Okay.
gonna be so
So
much better because, like, I just know it will
I
be.
don't know. So I didn't write in any world that I've really been writing in.
Mhm.
I'm trying to decide what to do next after I finish this series, and I'm
Mhm.
kind of torn between two different genres, and so I'm just trying to like
Mm.
go back and forth between the two until something sparks into a fire.
What
If
are the
that
two
makes
genres? Out of curiosity.
some more like science fiction fantasy-ish stuff,
Mhm.
or um they're both in the fantasy genre.
Oh, okay.
So like the more science fictiony, like dystopia, post-apocalyptic,
Mhm.
or classic, like epic fantasy.
Gotcha. And then are you gonna squeeze in any like crime, like mystery? 'Cause I love when
Yeah,
you write that too.
that's the third one, and I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't. I'm
I know
so
there's just not
torn.
enough time,
I have
right?
my ideation is in my top 5, and I have so many ideas. I have an idea for a Civil War story, love story too. So,
I know you wrote in that for a while. I remember that.
like I don't know. So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what sparks into a flame, but
Mm,
as I'm like trying to sprint in different things to see what I want to do.
awesome.
Okay, so you guys can try, guess what this is by just when I read it.
Okay.
Elieza groaned and threw her hand mirror on the vanity. The glass spider-webbed. She groaned
Mm,
again. What is it, my lady? Liza was a tiny thing, no more than 8 years old. Elieza had often wondered what kind of life she must have led that forced her to come work at the palace at such a young age. When Elieza was 8, she was running through the garden with her brothers, climbing into trees, much to her mother's chagrin, and
mm,
secretly learning sword fighting at night in the nursery. The Curl won't stay, and the Duke will be here any moment. As if her words were prophecy from on high, the sounds of many horses' hoofs and the rattling of carriage wheels sounded from outside her window. She ran to it. He's here, she moaned. Let me help you, my lady. Liza pulled the hot rod of stone from the fire and went to stand behind the vanity chair. I don't know if that's how they curled hair back then. I made that up. Sorry.
Depends on if this is
Uh,
real world or yeah.
Eliasa sat, wiping her damp palms on her dress absent-mindedly. Use the handkerchief, my lady, or your dress will soil. Eliasa sighed. Why had she not paid more heed to her lessons in grace and being a lady? Sure, she'd had an awesome childhood full of wonderful memories, but the state of her knowledge in being a lady was now less than ideal. Perhaps this duke would be the exception to every other man. Perhaps he would enjoy being married to a duchess who preferred to ride and hunt over hosting parties and looking pretty. There you go, my lady. Eliasa looked in the mirror. Liza, you are a magician. Please don't ever leave me. As you wish, my lady. Then the
Mm.
trumpet sounded, announcing the duke's arrival. Elysia, Eliasa rushed toward the door, stopping at the threshold to gather herself. I hope he's not ugly, she said. Then she rushed into the hallway and down the stairs to the main atrium. Three, two, one.
Oh my goodness. So good. Okay, so this is like a story in itself. It really is. Like the conflict in this is so great. And it's all internal and you've got this like, you know, person this servant that like kind of just like doing whatever she's got to do, but like it also makes me question like be a whole nother situation happening over there conflict wise, right? Like
Yeah,
but the whole internal of like, I'm really a tomboy, but my place is to marry this duke and like maybe he'll like me like I am. Like just you did it such a good job. And like we already know this character and we kind of like are rooting for her, right? And I hope he's not ugly too, but I'm guessing he's gonna be ugly. I have this feeling that he's not because you don't write romance. Like if it was
right. If it was
romance,
a
yeah.
romance, he would be like distractingly handsome.
Right, maybe with a scar or whatever, and he would be a jerk, right? Like, it's gonna come off as a jerk because that part can change, the looks can't change, right? So or he like, other people might find him ugly, but she doesn't, like, maybe he's scarred from a war of some sort, but, like yeah, I mean, like, that's romance, but when you write and you're like, "I hope he's not ugly," I feel like he's gonna be ugly.
Right, but beautiful on the inside, but it takes time to
Yeah.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is so great. I love what you did. I love yes, you should have named her instead of Elieza, you should have named her Eliana, because that's where your mind is, right?
Oh,
That's right
and
where
I
your
could
mind.
not pronounce her. I wrote the name, and I'm still
You could
struggling to pronounce it.
That's hilarious. All right, Shell says, "Great scene, Tina. Good setup of tension too. I really want to meet the Duke and see how he feels when he learns she's not so ladylike. Me too. Like I want to see like how she fails at the ladylike stuff. You know how she stumbles through it because she's not going to be great at it. So I love that." Suzanne says, "I really love how you use perhaps in your writing to fill me with wonder." Yep, I agree with that. Gigi says, "Tina, love this setting you've set up. Your main character's name is beautiful. Typing on my phone and autocorrect wouldn't allow me to spell her name." That's fun. Well, that's kind of a thing in fantasy writing too, right? Like the
Yeah,
names are just so and Liz likes your idea of taking genres for a test drive. I agree with that. I think that another reason why everybody should be sprinting, right? Because sprinting, you can try all the different kinds of things out. That's how I found out that I kind of have a love for contemporary romance too, not just historical, and why I'm going to be like kind of branching out and doing that as well. So, and then Catherine says, "So good as always." Agreed. So, so
thanks,
good.
Catherine. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. All
It's
right. We
always
have one.
good to get your back fed.
Yeah. My back is well fed. Is yours well fed?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so we have 1 minute left, um, if we wanna stick to an hour, but so, Tina, what's next for you?
Well, I have to finish this book. I have
Mm,
like literally like I most of my books are like right at 70,000 words and I
mhm,
am at 61,000 something.
right.
And I just need to get it done and it's been a struggle. It's been a struggle because like my heart is like otherwhere. It's like otherwhere.
Mm,
Is that like
elsewhere.
elsewhere? I feel like otherwhere should be a word.
Sounds like underwear to me. Just saying.
Since I've been making up names, I might as well make up words.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah,
Shakespeare
so
did. Why can't you?
right.
Yeah.
So I really just need to get down into this book and just get it. I need to like channel my inner Jason
And Jason's not even here for all these accolades, but yeah.
and like write like 10,000 words in the next 2 days and just get it done.
All right, so I'm gonna tell you a conversation I had with your daughter yesterday.
Oh
And
boy.
because she asked us how the writing thing went. I said it was great. And I talked about how Suzanne and Jason like killed it. Like they just was writing so many words, and that I got like 400, you got like each sprint. And then you got 400 or 500 each sprint. I said, it's funny because back in the day, your mom would without a doubt get 1,000 words each sprint. I said, but the difference I think is that you would do that, but then there was a whole lot of work to be done when you went back. And I think now you're still sprinting, you're still getting a decent amount of words, but I think you're crafting the words more. And I think that's
Exactly.
okay too. You know what I mean? I think everyone's different. I think a lot of people can, do 1,000 words and it'd be fine. But I think that like you have learned who you are as a writer and you slowed your speed down to craft more.
Yeah.
And I think it's apparent
Because
in your
I
sprints
hate
and
editing and revision.
yeah, you do. Let's just try to eliminate that entirely. That's awesome. Well, my what's next is, well, first of all, I'm for sure going to be there next Thursday. So if you are local, and when I say local, Jason drives over an hour. Suzanne drove close to an hour, I think it was, to come. I mean, like it's 1 week, it's 1 day a week for right now for the month of April. So if you want to join us, we would love to have you. We had a lot of fun. We got a lot of writing done, got to kind of connect and just have conversations with other like-minded Christian writers. So you're more than welcome to join us. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, you should do that as well. And the link is in the show notes. But so I will be there next week and I'm super excited because it's taken me a while to like get a feel for this book and like what I need to do next. I feel like I've already written this book, but it's not written. So I had to like figure out what's next. And now I'm at a point where I know what's next and I cannot wait for us to be done with all of our business stuff today so I can spend some time finishing like this chapter that I started in my sprint. So that's what's next for me is doing this chapter. So
And I just want to say that as an experiment, I did start a room in our group for
mhm.
the live writing sprints, and my friend Tanya was in there, and it was Liz that was in there,
Mhm.
and there were no dumpster fires, so it worked out pretty good. The one thing was that once they left, the room kicked me out.
Oh.
And I didn't know it, and I think it was Catherine that went in there, and there was nobody there. So if you try to go in there and it doesn't seem like anyone's there, there's a little chat icon down at the bottom. Open it up and type in there, and I will get a notification, and I'll know you're in there, and I'll come.
Mhm.
So because I don't want that to happen again, so I just wanted to say that.
Awesome. Catherine says, I would love to drive the 3.5 hours each way, but it would be tricky. Hey, dedication, Catherine, dedication, because Suzanne says it was worth the drive. So come on, 3.5
Hey,
hours.
my
Hey,
daughter and I have girls' night on Friday nights. Like, just drive the 3.5 hours, spend the weekend, go
there you
back on
go.
Saturday night.
There you go.
We're gonna
You
have
had
like a
girls' night
major girl party.
at Tina's house. Piper says, I'm so jealous I cannot get there. Oh,
Speak of the devil.
sick of the right. So, all right,
I'm
hold on.
I'm live right now, honey.
Oh, all right.
That
So
was my
coming.
daughter.
Oh, coming back to Piper's comment. Liz says I need a passport and a whole day to attend, maybe a whole weekend. We're gonna talk about that real quick here. Michelle says I'm gonna try and get up early enough next week to join the Facebook room. Yay! All right, so yes, I'm jealous you cannot get there, and that Liz needs a passport. But maybe if we did a writing retreat and you
Yeah.
could plan ahead. This was a conversation that we had, and you guys know we have like prayed about this and really want to do this. Be looking in the Facebook group. I think I'm going to do a survey and see what kind of response that we get and see like what the expectations would be and what like you guys would be. Anyways, look for a survey in the Facebook group because we do have some thoughts on that. So
Yeah, we've been thinking about it for a while, but I feel like it's closer to actually happening now.
maybe it's kind of scary,
Yeah.
but only because like it's different if we're just playing a small one for us. I would have no problem with that. I can figure that all out. But like I ain't met all of you. And so I don't know like what the expectation is. But anyways, we will talk about that hopefully soon. So, and Shell says retreat, all exclamation points and a little happy face. So, all right. Well, we've gone over as usual. So, as long as we have nothing else, I'm going to say that that's all for now. And until next week, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye, Nine.
Amen.